They are rock stars. When you're a rock star, you can do anything you want. And then we're not rock stars. We're just a bunch of geeks talking about cameras. It says we're live.
Oh, okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're live. Welcome to another episode of Camera and Flask. We do this once a week, so if you haven't already, there's a big, fat, juicy, delicious subscribe button, and you'll see the rest of us once a week, and you'll see that gorgeous bald man in the lower left as well, because it's his channel. So how's everybody doing? We got lots of people in the chat. We also have a special guest or two this week. You might see him there hanging out with Jem. We'll get to that here in a second. So Bart, welcome. Chris, Travis, digital filmmaker. We got David, Master Stroke Media. Whoa. Benjamin. Everyone okay over there?
I don't know about the Master Stroke, but I'm
going Media. I had to throw that in there. So welcome one and all. Welcome to Camera and Flask. Let's go ahead and go around and see how everyone's doing. I'm going to start with Jem. Jem, you want to introduce our friend over there?
Well, this is a 1-year anniversary of Mr. Dan Fakalakis Fakos. We call him the Amish now. Why not? And here he is. And he is a dear friend of mine and a dear friend of you guys, too. And he has been involved in production with me for many years now.
Probably 7 years.
7 years. Yeah. And he was but a pip when I first met him. He was working for you were that little.
Right in a little pocket.
Yeah, and I had him in my pocket, and I'm a little guy, so he was really small.
He's not big.
And he has worked on a lot of productions with me. He has eaten broken bread, drank honey vodka, and a whole bunch of other things. Churned butter because he's Amish, and that's okay
for the time.
And my audio is a bit low. We will make an adjustment on that audio. Because we have a pseudo camera operator who's so overqualified to increase our audio levels. Can you bump the mic up, and then you'll let me know about that.
We could just turn this into an ASMR session.
Oh gosh.
Okay, good.
Sorry.
That's all I got for you. So there's Dan. I'm Jem, and let's look at Ben's face. It's unbelievable.
How you doing, Ben?
Face.
What's going on?
I'm good. I'm not having as much fun as they are, though. But yeah, I'm all good. Thank you.
Good. I like to hear that. So why don't we kick things off? Folk in the chat, let us know what you're sipping on this evening, and let's get some bottles cracked open. Looks like Dan kind of already has something going on over there. So what do we got there, Mr. Ben? BARDEN?
Okay, so this week a return to a fresh bottle, something else from the Czech distillery of Gold Cock again.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Gold Cock. But this is a single grain whiskey from 2008. I've not tried this one, so that's what I'm going with. So I will get that open while we do the rounds and see what classy cans of lager those two are drinking.
We like silver cock over here, but
there's a highlighted pink. There's a highlighted pink.
Right, exactly. I don't know what this is because Dan Fakalakis just brought it in. It has the word wrench on it. So
this is Industrial Arts, which is a really nice IPA. It's great brewery. A lot of people around
tropical.
New York are drinking it now.
And it's pithy, and it's Northeast IPA in Industrial Arts Brewing Company. You know, when you go hipster, you go all in. Wrench. Industrial Arts Brewing Company, Northeast IPA, lush, tropical, pithy. I'm sure there's some other.
Turns out Jem can read.
There's some other clever stuff.
Jem, your beard isn't long enough to be drinking that.
It's pretty delicious, actually.
Okay.
Wait, hold on.
No, now he can drink.
There it is. Thank you.
Caleb, what are you drinking today, my friend?
Well, Ben and I are trading spots. He's been on a beer rampage. So I'm actually going to Beer Town, and nothing special, but it is October, so we're going to do, block my face here, Oktoberfest. I'm not a huge Sam Adams guy, but, every once in a while, get a little festive, have something flavored. Most of the time, I feel like their stuff is kind of like you're sucking on an orange and a pumpkin.
Yeah.
So I don't have a bottle opener, so this is going to get real interesting. There we go.
What'd you use? It was off camera. What'd you use?
I am in the process. There it is. Using the belt clip on my Leatherman, which
is that okay for you,
perfect.
Chris? That's all you get. David's having a gin and seltzer. What else do we have here? By the way, there's a comment here. Roger Deakins, could you bump the mic? You're not far off, Benjamin. My very close other friend is here, Matt Porwall, and he's a cinematographer. He shot Cartel Land, which was up for the Academy Award. So he's no joke. Primarily focuses on feature-length documentaries. He might come over here when we get into the tips portion of this, but is the audio level a little bit better for Dan and I? Is it a little bit better?
I hear a difference. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay, great.
I wasn't actually talking.
All right.
So how about we cheers this thing up, get this party started, and move on to our topic today. So everyone in the chat, gentlemen, good to be with you.
Cheers. Cheers to you.
Need some water.
Better now.
It's like licking a pumpkin. It's good. All right. So audio's better. Okay. So let's get into today's topic, which we could spend a lot of time on, but the idea is that each of us have a tip for 3 different categories of production. So we're going to talk about a camera tip, one each, one lighting tip each, and one audio tip each. Can be anything, short, complex, simple. Just thought we'd be kind of interesting series to do every once in a while. Start throwing some wisdom from these 2 gentlemen around, and then I'll tag along.
Oh,
give me something.
So crazy.
So here we go. Let's kick things off with should we have our guest do something first?
Yeah.
Just put it right on the spot.
Benjamin has a comment here. Wild that you have Matt Porwall filming for you. Really enjoyed his lens series for Able Cine.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
There he is. Come on in. There it is.
Oh, beautiful.
There you go. There's
great hands.
Oh, you're giving him the beer. You're supposed to be drinking that beer. Are you on the second beer already? We're early days here, brother.
I know, man.
Okay, we got dumplings to eat and stuff.
I know.
What is going on?
It's okay.
Sorry, Caleb. It gets a little out of hand when this happens. Go ahead. I'm ready. Look at this.
No, I was asking if you wanted your guest there to just kick things off. Just put him on the spot.
Yeah, let's do it. He's in.
Right.
He'll talk, and then if
Camera.
Matt wants to chime in too, he'll bump Dan out of the seat and start talking.
There you go. One camera tip. Go.
One camera tip.
One camera tip. Anything and everything.
Keep it in focus. I mean, can I have a little bit of direction?
No, it's a camera tip.
No, I mean I keep it in focus.
All right.
Matt has a beer, by the way. He's good.
Okay, good. Glad to hear it.
Somebody made a comment.
Let's just go up this little ring of what I see on my screen here. Ben, why don't you go second? We'll just keep this part going.
I didn't quite know where to go with these in terms of the level. I don't want to patronize people. That was the sort of thing, going really basic stuff or really complex stuff. So,
well, he just said keep it in focus, so I think you're good with just about it.
Had we known Dan was involved, I'd have had a better idea of where we were pitching things. But all right, so I'm going to go reasonably simple. We talked about this before in another episode, but just a little bit on filters I was going to do. So when we're shooting with cameras that have not got the best dynamic range, it's something that I and particular landscape photographers have used for years, and I don't see a lot of people using, particularly the kind of stuff we do on Shoots on Video, using graduated ND filters. And it's something that if I'm doing fast turnaround stuff and I don't want to, and I'm shooting maybe not in log, if you are shooting in log and you're using these, you've got to put a lot on stuff because they make a mess of things quite easily and you can overdo it. This is a very strong one, just to illustrate the point. This is a 0.9 Lee with a hard graduated filter on. So we've got ND at the top, clear at the bottom. I really like the Lee stuff because even the hard ND has quite a soft edge to it, but they do a soft version of this where that transition goes over about that kind of distance. And if we're doing landscapes particularly, we can pull the sky back in, obviously the brightest parts of the image, and even up our exposure. And I used to use these all the time because I learned to shoot on Fuji Velvia, which has a dynamic range of, I think, 4.5 stops. So you really had to try and control the light getting into the camera. So that is my super basic first tip. And lots of manufacturers, I find that the cheaper ones tend to have a very hard, nasty edge, or you get a color cast on it, and it's not like getting a cast on an ND that you're putting across the whole image, which you can then correct out. Because you're only putting it on half, you end up with all kinds of problems. So don't cheap out on them. The ones are great. They're not super expensive. That's my tip.
Okay.
Perfect. Love it.
Better than mine.
Yeah, cheap filters. That can get you some interesting stuff. Jem, let's go to you. What you got?
Camera tip. I would say that vast. Let me think about something. Yeah. Okay, this is good. Well, I don't know if it's good. Vast majority of us are shooting log now. So even if we're not shooting wide or color gamut, we are taking advantage, even on mirrorless cameras, of shooting in log. You're going to have to do a little bit of digging and find a little bit of information, but most manufacturers or other people who are publishing information on cameras made by certain manufacturers will have some sort of ISO chart, and it will basically explain based on the camera when you're setting it up in log recording, how many stops of dynamic range you're getting above middle gray and how many stops you're getting below middle gray. And generally there's a place where there's a shift. There is in Arri cameras, there's in Canon cameras, there generally is with Sony cameras. I'm sure there is with Blackmagic cameras, though nobody ever publishes anything with any real information from that company, so it's impossible to tell, just saying. But when you look at these charts, what it'll say, for instance, is you'll get a certain number of stops above middle gray if you're shooting at ISO 800, and then you'll get a certain number of stops below middle gray if you're shooting at 800. But very oftentimes, if you lower the ISO below the native ISO for log, you will actually start to shift your balance, and you'll get more stops of dynamic range below middle gray, as opposed to protecting your highlights. So when you're shooting interior, it's kind of an opposite. It kind of screws you a little bit. But if you want to retain and you want to have a fatter negative, sometimes it's better to shoot with a lower ISO with more, so you can get more shadow detail. And you're basically capturing more information in those lower stops, below middle gray. So that's my camera tip. Look into that. It can work. It's kind of weird because you're inside and you're like, okay, I'm going to shoot at 400 instead of 800. So now you're going to have to feed the sensor more light, but that's not a bad thing generally with digital cinema cameras. And then you're going to be getting more stops of information in that lower part of the image, which is probably more important. It's going to be quite the opposite when you're outside. So that's what I got for you.
Interesting. Very nice. So my tip is similar, and that was, this might sound, depending on where you're coming from, like a basic thing, but doing just some basic exposure tests when you get a new camera or you're working with a new camera. Are you hearing children in the distance?
Yes.
Good.
I like it.
Very clearly, huh? I hope this is actually coming through. Is this my?
Yeah, you're real, Mike.
Lav?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not coming through some. Yeah, you're fine.
Gotcha. Okay. So a couple basic tests, and with exposure, this is one thing I go through every camera that I do a guide on. It's just a basic getting a gray card out, figuring out where that should land, a middle gray or 18%. And another thing to do is have people in your idea where level should be, high shadows, because every camera reacts differently. And then when you're out, shooting a doc, if you've got a newish camera, or in any situation, you've got a great idea of, I've got no way to check this, but I know that this camera starts to kind of run into issues on the high end, on when you're shooting log or where skin should land. Were you comfortable with noise? If you're pushed into a situation where you have to, add a lot of gain. So yeah, just basic, but maybe not. So there we go. Camera, round 1.
Yes.
There it is.
I feel like I was the loser if we have to vote.
Oh, well, we might.
It is a competition, so.
Yeah, what do you have, Matt? What would be a tip for you?
I want to hear Dan redeem himself.
Yeah.
Dan redeem himself. I'd say always have a polarizer in your kit. There's plenty of times when you know you need to go outside. You're shooting interviews, and the client's like, "Oh, let's just grab like an establishing shot outside." Like, and a polarizer is always gonna make those skies a little bluer, and just
It could also reduce some reflection sometimes.
it could do that. I saw
It
that in
does
the
do
chat
that.
earlier, and that's also useful. But it's like there should be a polarizer that just lives in your kit. So
Okay.
redeemed.
Boom.
Who's to say?
Agree. Yeah, good.
Yeah, except for the fact that you acknowledged that you read about it earlier in the chat.
I'm also
so you're
I'm
really
also
just
a good
tagging on.
reader. I'm also a good reader.
Okay, Gruyere cheese. Let's keep going, Mr. Caleb Pike.
Does Matt have anything he wants to throw in the ring?
Matt, you want to kick this guy out and talk, or kick me out? Let's go. Matt's coming over.
Are we
All right.
both gonna leave?
No, Matt's coming over to me. He's going over here. All right, Matt. I'd like to see these two on camera together anyway,
Oh, boy.
and then I will come back and start talking about something else.
While
Jim,
they
I think
transition over there,
Yeah,
You
Jim, you
should sit in that chair in the background.
just be like 3 stops under us. Just in the.
Get some streaks and tips.
Yeah,
on the-
exactly.
Ball that head.
Your exposure is much better here. See what's happening when it's pushing to the wet. Look at
Yeah.
the screen. Yeah,
It goes down about
I know.
stop
I know.
and a half.
All right, go ahead.
Anyway, I would say, funny enough, that my camera tip would actually have nothing to do with specific camera technology and information, but regardless of what camera you're using, at least, and then this is in my perspective for doing docs, is that the ergonomics of how you build your camera package, because I feel like everybody's so concerned about all the bits and bobs you can put on it, is in some ways, on the documentary perspective, is who cares what camera you're using, but make sure that you build it out in a way that it's comfortable. Because if the camera's always fighting you where the button layouts doesn't make sense, or you can't access certain things, then it doesn't matter how good the image quality is, you're not going to be able to get the shot you want to get out of it. So, find the system and the rig that works best for whatever camera you have available, as opposed to always thinking about having the highest quality, best camera at your disposal. Because at the end of the day, if it's fighting you, then you're not going to be able to utilize the best parts of those cameras anyway.
dig it.
It makes a lot of sense. There's nothing worse than like making a build and the LCD is just a little bit too close to your face. So like the whole day you're like this, if you were to, put a little thought of that ahead of time, or build it out in a way that, I could sit here for an hour because it's a very comfortable build. That's super important.
Nice.
Anyway.
And then Matt, just out of curiosity, is there a particular like form factor that not that you should always use it, but that you prefer, you love when it comes to shooting docs?
I'm a shoulder rig person. I like to have the camera on my shoulder mostly for eye line, because I feel like, I normally shoot on the C300, C300 Mark II. And so it's a great tiny camera. And I know a lot of people that like to shoot with just the camera body and the lens, and it's really light and you can cradle it in front of you. But what I find is when you are filming with people and you're shooting from here, then the eye line is just always looking up at people.
That makes sense.
Which isn't always the most flattering position. If I want to purposefully shoot low, then I'll drop the camera down, but I like to be at the same eye height with people. So having the shoulder rig is important, and then just finding a way that, depending on how you have it built out, if you put a battery on the back or not, finding a way that you're not stressing your forearms all the time, and just kind of find those sweet spots where you can, theoretically sit in that spot for an hour.
I think you also want to think about the position of your wrists. You don't want them to be in some really torqued position. It's comfortable for 10 seconds, but is it comfortable for 10 minutes? So it's like you want, wherever it is, you want those wrists to be in a more neutral position, which I think is also pretty important.
There you go. Okay. Love it. Awesome. So
I think Jen was asleep in the back.
He's taking a little nap back there. He is.
Wait,
Okay.
hold on, no.
Noticed him.
I'm kicking you out for a second. Okay.
Oh,
So
no.
you're staying, Matt. Okay.
All right, hang on.
No, you're staying, Matt.
I
You're
am
staying.
staying.
No. Okay. So one of the things that I want to say about what Matt's talking about is this is a long time ago, but we did a series on the C300 Mark II, which featured Matt. And there's actually one episode where you talk about how you rig your camera, and it's an evolution. It's not necessarily that what they'll see in that video is exactly the way you're using your camera right now. But you can look for Brooklyn Phono C300 Mark II on Canon's YouTube channel, and you'll actually see the basic ideas behind how you rig your camera. And one of the things that I think is also really interesting about the way Matt shoots is that the camera's up here. Now, remember, if a camera's on my shoulder, it's very different than the eye line. I'm still looking up. I'm like a hobbit. But you'll also drop the camera down, and you'll rotate your screen, and you'll actually hug the side of your body, and you'll cradle it sometimes. So you're actually taking that whole rig, and that might be on an easy rig, or it might just be handheld or whatever you're using.
Isn't that great product that like you wear it as a belt and literally flips out?
The hip shot?
The hip
Is that what
shot.
it's called?
Yes.
Have you used it?
No.
Okay. Do you use an easy rig at all?
No.
No. Okay. That's what I thought. But, it's the beer talking. So, but you should watch that episode. It's very interesting. So it's pretty fascinating. So it's free and it's there and all that good stuff. What are you talking about? Oh my God, Chris, with the mannequin. I'll never live this down. It's unbelievable. Okay, let's keep going.
Don't ever stop, Chris. Don't ever stop. All right. So here we go. We're going to move on to round 2, which is going to be lighting. Once again, we're going to start down in 3 Peopleville. I don't know. It's on my screen. It's down. Yeah, the bottom left. So we'll give Benny Boy a break, or Dan. Jem.
Yeah.
Right back at you. Lighting tip.
So I'm going to kind of double this up. I'm going to tag on to the whole idea of exposing your images correctly, because I think it is a lighting tip. And I think that whether you're shooting RAW or you're shooting log, which you should sort of be thinking in similar terms as far as how you expose, that there are a lot of white papers in terms of how you should expose your image. I generally find that about 40 IRE on a waveform monitor is a pretty good sweet spot in terms of a gray card coming up. But one of the problems that a lot of people have is if your camera is right over there and you're keying from about a 45-degree angle, then you could take your gray card and probably point that gray card towards the lens. And you'll get a pretty good sense of what your exposure is when you look at your waveform monitor and you're moving the gray card back and forth. And you could dial that into about 40 IRE, sometimes a little higher as long as your highlights are not clipping and you're not feeling sourcey and hot. And I'm going to give you more information. There's a lot of high bright monitors right now. And one of the problems with those is that you can put like small HD I like because there's a mode inside of the settings where when you're outside, you can go high bright, high nit. But when you come inside, they essentially have a quote unquote studio setting. And you're not falsely thinking that your image is hot, right? Now, you always trust the waveform monitor because that's like a digital meter, right? It's like for audio meters. Trust the signal that's coming in and it's being displayed, but you also have to use your eye. You have to LUT your image, unLUT your image, and make sure it doesn't feel sourcey. But let's say, and this is like the second lighting tip, sometimes when you have problems or you want a different look, you might side key a person. And so you're putting the key over here, which is great for reflections or minimizing them. And if you have a nice return on the fill, that looks really nice as well. Remember that you've moved your light from a 45-degree angle to essentially a 90-degree angle. So if you now point your gray card directly at the lens of the camera and you try to adjust your exposure to make sure that that gray card is 40 IRE, you're effed. And so you need to understand that you need to now move your gray card to basically in between where that side key is and where the lens is. And you're going to get a more accurate idea of where that exposure should be. And you can dial it in. It's a little trickier when you're side keying, but you basically are sort of looking for about 40 on that 45-degree angle between the lens and the light. And then, when you're pushing it to the side and you're catching the key, it's probably going to be floating at around 60. And then look at highlights on skin tone and stuff like that. And that all helps as well. That's what I got. And we've got a bomb cyclone coming, just so that you know. Just so that you want to know what's going on in New York. The bomb cyclone. Okay. There you go.
Okay.
That's what I got.
Ben, lighting.
All right. Sorry, I've been slightly thrown and disturbed by Jem talking about being saucy and hot. But I'll try and get.
I didn't say saucy. I said saucy. But I will leave now and let Dan come here, and they can give additional.
That's what came across. Saucy and hot.
Saucy.
It's so saucy.
Saucy and hot.
There you go.
So we mentioned this on an awful lot of episodes, including quite a lot of the gear challenges when we've been talking about buying quacker clamps, which we've had in most of our kit challenges. So on the lighting thing, the thing that I love, and not just because it's convenient and you can buy the stuff anywhere and it's dirt cheap, is beadboard. I also love the bounce that you get off this stuff. More than anything I've ever bought, the bounce that comes off this is just lovely. So that's what I was going to use as my tip. This stuff you can buy from any builder's merchant, a Home Depot or whatever. These things are like $10 for a piece this big. And I've just got it on a clamp, which normally is what I have bouncing off for this setup, but I've just put a cheap crappy reflector on for today so that I could show this. So this stuff has a multitude of uses, not just because when you're traveling you can just take a clamp with you that you can then put that onto a stand and you can buy that anywhere. We use them in the studio an awful lot as well to make V-flats. So you can paint them black on one side, white on the other. So you can use them as negative fill as well as using them for bounce. And we use them as V-flats. So we build really big kind of, I don't know in feet, but sort of 2.5 meters by 1.5 meter boards. And we build them into a V-flat so we can use them as a freestanding piece in the studio.
Right.
Just the most incredibly versatile bits of kit for absolutely no money.
Yep.
And just buying the hardware to be able to attach those to stands, or even if you're using the huge sheets that you get, you can buy stands that just put those on the floor so that they'll stand up as a single piece rather than using them in a V if you're just using one at a time. So from a lighting point of view, you can use those, bounce anything into that. You get a nice big source off a little one. I'm using the Aperture F1 light that I use all the time. So that's a source this big and turning it into however big that is, 3 foot by 1 foot.
Nice. Brilliant.
Super easy, super cheap. Everyone should go buy them.
Absolutely. Another little mod I saw a couple of people use and I used for a while here was on the one side, if you don't use the black side or the silvery side, because here in the States, they have like writing on the silver side. If you go to like Home Depot, you can get like liquid nails or something and use, get some acoustic foam, like it's treated like acoustic foam, put it on one side, and then it can be a negative fill, or you can put it just out of frame and that'll help with your sound for like killing reverb and whatnot. So I've seen that a couple times. It's kind of cool.
I think
I'm just going to mention one other thing quickly on that as well, is that in the UK particularly now, this is one that I bought from a shop here in the Czech Republic, but a lot of them, if you try and order them online, they now have like a blue fleck in them. In most of the products, you still can find the pure white ones, but you've just got to look a little bit harder and make sure that you really look at the detailed image of the product that you're buying to make sure that it is a white one.
Hold on, are you saying you don't want a little bit of a blue cast in the skin tone? I'm confused.
I'm just saying you need to be.
Hold on. Jem wanted to know if you heat up a quacker clamp enough, can you make a panini with it? Swear to God, that's why I went back there like 2 months ago.
Oh, that's great.
There's a reason he's back there.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I was going to say to the same note of trying to source cheap, inexpensive beadboard for bouncing, is beadboard of the highest quality and the kind of what people are using on full film sets
Grass fed.
isn't expendable. And what that means is productions are buying it. They paid for it regardless of whether they use it or not. And that stuff always goes back on the truck, back to the rental house. So go to your local rental house, and I guarantee you they'll have a ton of beadboard that they'll sell you
Like
for
scraps.
nothing.
They'll have like a weird
Well,
like
scraps, but also
or
anything
full.
from, you know, a 4 foot by 4 foot to even the 4x8 that we were talking about making the V flats out of.
Yeah.
I mean, once they've sold it, they can't really do anything with it. So go and take it off their hands. And the same thing applies if you need ND gels, if you need CTO, CTB. Rental houses have so much scrap that people drop off that they would much rather either give it to you for free or sell it to you for nothing than throw it away.
Yeah. True.
Sick.
Was that your tip?
Huge tip.
Was that the tip?
Well, what's funny is
that's a good tip. That's
my
actually-
initial tip was also, Ben, you talked about just beadboard in general, is I was going to say for the only lighting that I ever do is for interviews, and just bounce it. Just bounce whatever light source you have, and it's instantaneously going to make it look better.
Yep.
And what's funny is I did a whole, on my website, I like to test things that I'm using all the time, and I figured I might as well share it with other people. And so I did
And your
a whole
website is?
It is mattporwall.com.
Bam. Chat,
Bam,
taking
thank
notes.
you.
I want to hear those pens scribbling.
I got it.
There you go. So I tested a whole bunch of different bounce sources, whether it's beadboard or ultra bounce or bleached muslin, unbleached muslin, and then also tested a bunch of diffusion materials from, you know, just the gels of 215 or 216, 250, opal to, again, the bleached muslin, unbleached muslin, a whole bunch of stuff, and kind of looked at what it looked like to just bounce one source, the same source, into each one of those materials and what that light quality looks like. And then also to bounce it into each one of those materials and then diffuse it basically as a book light to see what the quality of that light looks like. And with all of these different kinds of materials that I tested, it's still the beadboard, I think, that comes back looking the best,
It's my favorite.
which is the
Agreed.
cheapest
Nice.
and the easiest.
Probably my second favorite.
And then the muslin. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, beadboard, like you're saying, you can do anything with it. I noticed a comment that someone had said about the importance of kind of a hair light or a kicker. And that's actually what I like to use beadboard for as well, is instead of setting up a light source behind me that creates a really strong edge light, is I'll just take a piece of beadboard and put it opposite my key and let that just give a little soft edge that feels very natural. It feels like a window light coming in, as opposed to kind of a stylized kicker light. So, I mean, I feel like you can do anything with beadboard.
Brilliant. Wonderful tip.
You might even
Yeah.
be able to use it in some sort of construction house like purpose.
Insulation, perhaps?
I don't know.
And
Dan's on his second.
if you don't have a rental
Ben's on his
house,
third.
no, I'm not. I'm actually on my first.
Can you just get a trailer and join us?
Shush. If you don't have a rental house that's near you, and you're at least in the U.S., you can go to Lowe's and they sell in the insulation aisle. They sell. Oh, you did that? It's cheap though, super cheap, like $20.
A little tip
You
with
gotta-
that though, make sure you peel off the. Do you
Yeah,
guys?
that's the peel off.
What's that?
Peel off the coating.
Yeah, there's a coating on there
make
that like
sure you
makes
rice
it all
peel off the
sparkly.
coating. Okay.
There you go.
Great tip.
Dan,
Yes.
what you got? Wonderful
I
tip,
got-
guys. Loving it.
I have two tips. Well, no, I have one tip, but I did want to just call back Matt's earlier. When he said bounce it, it looks great. It always looks the best. I think that is true in 98% of the cases.
Here we go.
Oh,
And I'm not going to
Here we
disagree
go.
with him. I
Here we
No,
would.
you're
go.
right.
Here's
This
2%,
this is
2%.
personal. This is
Here we
this
go.
is my personal
It's
experience.
from an Amish Pennsylvania viewpoint. Let's hear it. Let's go.
So although bounce almost always looks
Shoot
best,
fire. Shoot fire.
I think and again, this is not for a dock setting at all. If you take a Leco and if you hit someone with a bare Leco, they always look good. And that's just my personal opinion. But again, you're not going to use that for interviews. You're not going to use that for doc. It's a very specific look. But I think a tungsten Leco always looks great on someone's face. Doesn't matter at what angle you put it. So that would be my asterisk to his.
And if it doesn't look good, just bring in some beadboard and fill in the other spot.
exactly.
There you go.
By the way, if you bounce a Leica or a Joe Leica or a spotlight on an aperture light off a beadboard, but you position your talent between the Leica and the actual beadboard,
Or your mannequin. Or your mannequin.
Or your mannequin, yeah.
You can actually pick out.
I remember the mannequin.
Yeah.
Wait, is that from his studio? Is that why everyone's saying
It's
it?
ridiculous, yeah. And you're ridiculous. You can actually pick up some light from the inside of the fixture, and you can actually get some fill. It's pretty interesting. Watch the mannequin episode.
There you go. It's true. It's true.
Aperture spotlight episode.
Which is on this
Polythene
channel.
Pam looks.
And you
What?
would have seen that video if you had subscribed. So just a note to anyone who has that button and it's not gray. If it looks red, make sure you press it.
Very good.
All right, my actual tip though is it's not a very they're way more expensive than they should be, but egg crates. My tip is egg crates. Just if you have a softbox, if you can somehow find a cheap egg crate for it, it's always just gonna take that soft quality of light but control it a lot more instead of a softbox just being soft but spilling everywhere. If you can find an egg crate for, Godox makes some cheap ones. Sometimes they don't fit. Sometimes they don't fit perfectly.
Do me a favor and sit here.
Jim. So my tip is egg, have some sort of egg crate type option. Oh, Matt is gonna show. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we currently have an egg crate on the key light right now, and it's really controlling how much light's hitting the background, and it's making it nice and dramatic while still keeping a soft light on these guys. But I'm going to pull the egg crate.
Yeah. I could also use a little bit of stuff on my forehead, but
So I will say two things. One, obviously it got a lot brighter, so egg crates kind of, take a little bit of that exposure down. But look at this over this shoulder. Look at this reflection off the book. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, look at the reflection off the book. That's because our key light is now hitting the background and there's something shiny back there. And since it's a pretty frontal light, that is what's creating that reflection. So by putting the egg crate on, the light doesn't hit the background and we don't get the reflection. And this is what the egg crate looks like.
you keep referring to the book. Are you honed in on like one single book of the 400 books behind us? What's going on?
Yeah, there's a
I
great
see it. There's a
Jules Verne book right there. Jules Verne.
Atlas Shrugged.
There
It's
it
back
is.
there. Okay. I not we.
Again, they're like that thing that Matt just showed you might have been what, $300 or $400.
Well, not yes for that particular fixture, but I think that's a huge shift in the industry. Wouldn't you gentlemen say that modifiers are starting to come way down in price? I mean, the fact that you can buy, modifiers now that cost between $90 and $200, whereas previously they used to cost at minimum $400 and they went up to $1,500.
I would say honestly, like they have a couple generic sizes on B&H, and like buy one that's like pretty close, and if it covers 90% of your light but it doesn't fit perfectly, like it's gonna have the same effect. Maybe you don't want it to look too janky if you're doing work with clients, but it's still for a fraction of the cost, it's gonna have the same effect.
And I think
maybe
there's so many lights in that kind of mid and lower range now that are coming with that stuff. And modifiers. If you're buying a softbox, they come with the egg crate. That seems to be more and more.
Or if you're buying a softbox and there's an option to add the egg crate, absolutely take it, because you won't always use it, but there's plenty of times you want to use it.
Sure.
And maybe try to avoid if you're filming someone with glasses, which is the main reason I don't use them when I film myself, because that's the worst when you look over and in post you see just this massive, like, what is he looking into? A cage of the sun caged?
That is a really good tip. I haven't run into that.
Although what's interesting is another tip is to the same point, but slightly making it to work in your advantage, is if you do have you're interviewing somebody with glasses and they keep looking over and all you see is a perfectly square source of whatever you're bouncing into or diffusing through, that obviously looks like one of your lighting instruments. But if you take just a couple pieces of like 2-inch gaff tape and run it through your diffusion frame or through your softbox or whatever you're seeing in their glasses,
Yeah.
then it now looks like something natural. It looks like a window. It looks like whatever else.
So, and also, this is a whole thing from product photography. I used to do loads of kind of glassware, drinks bottles, that kind of stuff. The same thing. If you're side lighting those things with softboxes, you put strips of just black gaff down the middle of the softbox, and then you get that proper sort of nice edge in, and it doesn't look weird. And
Yeah.
Love it.
David said, "What about Cucaloris? F Cucaloris."
Very helpful.
No,
I'm
I'm not saying that for real. Cucaloris is nice because it breaks up the pattern,
right.
But it's when we think about the typical, especially a wooden Cucaloris, which is a 2x3 most of the time, it's kind of a fixed pattern. It's a random pattern, but a fixed pattern.
But it's also not a window pattern.
No, it's not.
So like if you're looking at an eye light and you want to maybe simulate what feels like a window, like those vertical and or horizontal gaff pieces will make it just
exactly
feel like a window more than just, oh, that's clearly a big softbox.
And you can also take, if you have a Joe Lico or a Lico or Source 4, you can drop a go-between in there, and you can break that up and throw it out of focus. Go-between.
That's a
go-bo. Yeah, go-between. So you can throw that out of focus. But I think that it's a little bit more interesting to push a hard light through something and break up the light a little bit on the background. I don't know what's going on here, but there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. No, you just blew my mind with some other stuff. Okay.
Although, Jem, I want to take you back when you said that the Cucaloris is a fixed pattern.
Well, I don't mean fixed. Yeah, go ahead.
But it's kind of true, kind of not.
Yes.
Because if you
know.
Put it closer to your light, it's going to be a softer diffusion, and the edges aren't going to be as hard, where you can make that look like anything.
Yes.
It's just a subtle
and you can angle it.
You can angle it, or if you bring it further away from your light, you're going to get more defined shadows. And now it really feels like
it's just how I feel today, David. That's what's happening. He's right, but it's just how I feel today about a Cucaloris. Okay, that's all.
Okay. All right. Well, passionate words spoken on camera and Flask about Cucalorises. Cucalori. Ben, did you do your tip? I think you did, right?
I did, yeah.
I'm sorry, Dan. I keep getting you mixed up. Sorry. Hey, grades. That's right. Got him. All right. So mine was going to be, guess what? Bouncing light. Just like everybody else. And you can use so many things. Like, I'll do this right now. I probably shouldn't because I got this like perfectly balanced, but I'll take away my key bounce. That's what this room looks like.
Ew, he looks terrible without bounce.
Awful. So I'm just using a like a poster board. It's thinner, more thin than what we've been talking about, beadboard, but very nice quality of light. I'll go ahead and prop it back up, and the light I'm using to bounce into this is, you can see my background back there, up there. It's one of those. It's like a 4-foot quasar-ish like light, which would look like butt if it was just pointed right at me. So it works great. And then to mix it up, since you guys all said bounce, or we're talking about bounce lighting, I also have been really enjoying having a really punchy fixture, like a C300 or, a 1K, 2K, bouncing into something large and white, if that's in a room, maybe the ceiling if it's white, or bringing in some sheets and hitting that, or Jem's forehead, whatever it takes, to get the job done.
I got the anti-shine stuff. It's in the bag over there.
Can we fly a gem in real quick?
There you go. And I try to still use it as like a key. I want the direction to be where the key is coming from, like simulating a window or something. But then I'll bring in like a softbox to just add a little more definition. So like just huge soft bounce lighting, and then bring in a softbox or some fixture just to get that little bit of edge. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, when you just like blast a big giant white ceiling, it just kind of looks, I don't know, kind of ghostly. It needs a little definition. So
Benjamin, it looks like Caleb's using foam core, not beadboard. Beadboard is compressed styrofoam.
Correct.
You can see each of the little, parts of the styrofoam,
which makes it softer.
Much softer, and it breaks it up. And I mean, I agree with everybody that beadboard is pretty much the best thing that's ever been invented for bouncing light. And muslin is a close-ish second.
I mean, but to be fair, beadboard and foam core are like, they're both white and they're both like not mirrors, so they're going to be
no, but foam core will
coated with a white paper.
and the problem is that white paper, if I was bouncing off of it, I mean, the problem right now is we have a softbox coming down, and I've been teaching all day, and I'm a little sweaty, and I've got this little thing, and I'm bald, and all the other fun stuff. But if I'm bouncing off a beadboard, it scatters the light a lot more, and if you're bouncing off of a foam core, because of that coated paper, you tend to get more highlights and stuff like
Should we
that.
just say more like directional?
Yeah, I mean, between the two, it's definitely more direct.
Okay.
Definitely more direct.
I got learned.
There you go.
Go, Bo.
But
Go between.
I will say,
I learned about
if
that
you
not
can
that long ago.
find poster board that has a paper that's very matte,
Yeah.
I love them because with one piece of gaff tape, you can tape it to a door or something. It's super lightweight.
Yes.
Whereas, you know, the thick stuff that you need a little oomph, you need your quacker clamp to really
And
deal with
and
that.
poster board, you can actually curve it too, so it doesn't have to be flat. You
Ah.
can bend it, which will help.
Mind blown.
You know,
Yeah.
it'll in some ways it almost acts like an egg crate where it gives a little bit of focus to it,
Yep.
but it also softens it because you're not getting that straight back and forth bounce off the light source.
Yep.
Interesting.
Nice.
Mine's actually got the foam in the middle, but it's the nice thing
But,
too. I have it propped up on a monitor, and then the other end of it's on my camera, so it's like super jank. All
And
right,
think
so I
that
believe
foam core,
Jem,
can screw
you needed to
paper
get
off.
out of here a little earlier. So do you want to do rapid fire audio, or do we not have time?
I'll do a quick audio tip. I've got a boomed mic here, right? It's we could call it a shotgun, but that's a lie because it's not a shotgun polar pattern. So when we take a look at a microphone, can you kind of see this, guys? When we talk about the pickup of the microphone right here, the primary pickup of a microphone is called the axis, AXIS. And if you position that microphone, and a lot of people think they should point it towards a person's mouth, then you're going to basically, any single time you turn, you look in another direction, you are off axis, right? So what happens in post-production is your audio levels start to drop. There's a secondary pickup from a microphone, which is called the lobe, L-O-B-E, which is much bigger and wider. And if you position that microphone towards the person's chest or towards their forehead, depending on if they're a leaner forward or a leaner backer, then you are picking up in the lobe. And when they are turning left, right, up, and down, they're still in that same pickup pattern. And you don't have your audio levels dropping and increasing all of the time. And that's my tip for audio. Keep it in the lobe, not in the axis.
Nice.
Boom.
Also worth noting that certain microphones are a lot more forgiving for that than others.
What are?
Certain microphones are a lot more forgiving
sure.
for going off axis than others.
Yes, I mean, this is a cardioid pickup, and one of the other secondary tips about a cardioid pickup is when you're inside, there's no tail, there's no back pickup on a cardioid, so it's a little bit wider in the front. But when you have HVAC systems and a lot of audio above, then cardioid pickup might be better than super or hypercardioid when you're doing interior interviews. When you don't hire a sound recordist, which you should, but we can't afford to and we can't always have. There you go. That's what I got.
Yeah, Bart
Good.
said number one production tip earlier in the stream was hiring a sound pro.
Yeah,
he
no
just
kidding.
dropped it in again. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm going to throw mine in there real quick just to get it out because it's super short, and that's just keep your friends closer and your microphones closer to your
Third
talent.
eye. Third eye.
Nice.
Just really, I mean, I'll take a garbage $5 microphone off Amazon that's close versus anything super far away, maybe except for like low bar, one of those ridiculous.
As close as you can get it on your widest shot, right?
Yeah.
That's
right.
It's like as long as it's out of frame, get it as close as you can on your widest.
And if like the environment is absolutely horrific, maybe you don't do something super wide. You know, if it saves audio and it's all about whatever is being spoken, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. People always think I'm crazy when I always say that sound's more important, which is killing me for my job. But
so much more.
I will always make
You
a
should be
shift.
a sound guy.
Unfortunately, do it too often. But yeah, I'll always make a compromise to picture to make sure you can get good sound. always.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, that was the first time in 44 episodes where it was almost
Silence.
a borderline uncomfortable silence on camera and Flask. How did that happen?
Really?
I blame Nick.
Hey,
My end,
you
everyone
know-
froze. So
yeah, everyone did freeze, and also
okay.
we didn't acknowledge this, but we've been going for over a year now. Did you two notice this?
Is that true?
Last-
right. 'Cause
Yeah,
Ben was on.
3rd
Ben
of
was on
October was the first episode. So we've been doing this
Happy
for-
anniversary!
Wow.
Happy anniversary, guys!
Yeah.
I didn't get you anything,
Time for
but
another drink. I did.
I got a cake.
I'm giving
Hold
you.
on,
I'm giving you a
I got
virtual
a
hug.
cake.
I got you these 2 Moulignons over here. That's what I got you for the anniversary.
What was that word?
The best gift you could give.
It's not a word.
Yes, it is.
No, it's
True.
Come on, Amish. It's totally a you
It's
Moulignon.
a fake New York word.
It's a fake New York word. Come on, you Moulignon. That's a fake New York word. You're absolutely right. It is. Sauce or gravy. All right, let's go.
Okay. Is this me now? Sorry, everything
for it,
froze
Ben.
there for a minute. So, all right. So
Yeah.
this was a question that came up on one of the early episodes about lav mic, and these things are omnidirectional, so they have this pickup like this around them. It doesn't really matter. And I had mine on a shirt that day that this question came up, pointing downwards, and someone had mentioned that I'd sloppily made a mistake by doing this, and it wasn't a mistake, and we talked about it briefly at the time, but I think it's worth mentioning that if you're placing lav mics and you're pointing them downwards, you're going to reduce the sibilance that occurs. That's the hard kind of sounds that people make
British.
when they're speaking.
We do.
What was that?
He was wondering what sibilance meant, and
Sibilance, I've never
I
heard
said
of it.
sibilance, and I said he's British. He knows more vocabulary than we
You
do.
guys are rude.
No, we're not.
We're just in
meant-
the middle of
No,
describing.
sorry,
a
No,
very
no.
important
this is
thing.
what Ben and I do on the show. It's part of our thing.
Questioning.
Oh, you're-
And then,
Yeah.
he does that, and then that's part of the show. Okay, go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
Carry on. Sibilance.
See,
I think
that
he's
is-
just being respectful.
he does it to me all the time. Okay, here we go. I'm ready.
As if I'm ever rude to you or your blow up friends. It's
Okay.
Waving arm guy.
I'll do a new episode. Next week is going to be from the barn. All right, let's
No,
go.
I'm sorry.
Go back.
He was in the middle of pointing it down and why you.
yeah. So it's the reason that why you would do that is that you have this pickup pattern that's here. That obviously the thing that you would instantly think with a microphone is that the pickup is going to be immediately in front of the front of the microphone, and
Right.
that isn't the case with everything. You need to look at the pickup pattern for that microphone, which an Omni is all around here. So pointing it down will actually give you a better result. It's a short one. That's all I've got for you.
I think it's a great one. And you think about the pickup pattern. You can think about the capsule at the end of the lavalier as sort of the core of the Earth, and then you have to think
Yes,
about
exactly.
it as a sphere that
Football.
comes from there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's a football.
Yeah. And then there's very few exceptions to that, but there is one tram microphone that has a pickup where it's basically like it picks up from actually where the capsule is. So people use that a lot on baseball caps because it actually picks up. It might be the 50. There's one mic from Tram where it's still omnidirectional, but it's not the core of the Earth in terms of where it starts to pick up. But there's very few exceptions to that with microphones, and I think that's a great tip.
Okay.
Oh crap. Okay, I'm looking at my battery level because I'm not plugged in. I have 8% left. But so be it. It's okay.
Other audio
That's another
tips.
tip. Plug all your stuff in.
Yeah, that is a good tip. What about you,
Okay.
Caleb? What's your audio tip?
Oh, I did mine. I just got it out real quick. It was the just keep your mics super close as possible.
Right. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
I love this
How about you?
topic that you came up with because it's basically we can go on with this. Like whenever we don't, you said it, and whenever we don't have a topic for one of our camera and flasks, we can go back to this and we can do a part 2, we can do a part 3, we can do a part 4, and we can just continue to have tips.
Jim
based on
knows
these
how to
categories.
read, but he also knows how to count.
You see what I'm dealing with right here?
no, Dan. He really doesn't know how to count. He doesn't.
That's true.
Like his episode count is
Take six.
way
I mean,
off.
take 8.
Yeah. This is episode 44/50. So there you go.
Right, you do the maths, and that's maths with an S at the end of it, not maths. Do the maths. We've been going for a year now. Like the episode tally cannot be right.
It cannot.
Anyway.
You're absolutely right. It's true. All right. Do you have an audio tip for when you're doing? Because you are tasked because of documentary with doing audio a lot. What is a big tip for you? Maybe something related to dealing with talent or anything like that?
Well, I thankfully have had the opportunity to work with a lot of really, really great sound recordists. So I've been able to pick up some stuff for them, but I'm also not carrying around a massive bag that's only dedicated to every little windscreen and stuff that they're using to attach to any type of clothing. But I do have a very small little pouch that just has a few things, because we're always hiding our mics on the dock, so that creates its own set of problems. But I just have a small little kit of like little the brand names right now are escaping me because I don't do it all the time. But what I would say is, if you have access to a sound person that you might come across on a job, pick their brains about, what little windscreens do they use? How do they, what kind of standardized way do they have of mounting their lavs? Because everybody has 15 ways of doing it.
Yep.
But if you can start to find someone or a couple people that are utilizing the same way, then, it's at least been tested across multiple people. And just do what you can, because what I always tell producers when we don't have the budget for a sound recordist is, I can do it, but know that my time is going to be split between camera and sound.
Yep.
Both of which are important. Sound is more important. And so just know that there are sacrifices that are going to be made, but do your best to try to fill it in. And so I just have enough things to cover me for 80% of the situations. If someone shows up with a super starchy shirt, not much I can do.
Right.
If, I have one little band that you can put a wireless transmitter into. So if somebody shows up in a dress that you just can't work with, that's all I can, there's only so much I can do. So that's the important thing of having a sound recordist. They will come with everything.
Yeah.
But, find a couple solutions that work for 80% of the situations for miking somebody. Because, as much as a boom mic will always sound the best and the most natural and the most rounded, oftentimes you're going to need to lav people anyway, just for coverage.
Mm-hmm.
So practice miking people in different types of clothes and see what works best.
Cool.
Great.
Good stuff. Excellent.
Anything over there, Danny?
I would say I just expand on Matt's point. I don't do any doc. I pretty much do mostly commercial, but sometimes it's small, and you can only hire one guy, and you might hire a lighting guy instead of a sound guy in this job. And I think it's important to just make sure if you ever have an issue, if you're dealing with a client and they want you to do something you don't normally do, like they want you to do sound. It's an interview. That's fine. Just flag one or two possible problems you may have and be like, hey, we're not hiring a sound guy. So if this happens, just know I'm just flagging it early. Jem's laughing, but like if you just have, and honestly, this applies to anything beyond sound, but if you can just flag a thing with a client in an email before you get to set, if they're like, oh, why did that sound like crap, or X, Y, and Z, just be like, you kind of are covering your own ass. You're like, I told you, like, I'm ready for a sit down interview, and you wanted to go film on the street. I'm not a sound guy. But if you flag these sort of things in any sort of email conversation early on, this is, I don't know.
Manage expectations.
That's it. That's just manage expectations when it comes to sound. If you're not any good at it, just manage expectations.
Well, it says
you could fit a 416 in that beard.
I always have a lav hidden in my beard.
But the thing is,
welcome to Cameron Flask.
We can't always have a beard close by.
What is that? It's a merkin.
It's a wind, a dead cat.
A microphone.
Yeah.
Wait, it's gonna get loud.
Okay, now I understand. Yeah.
There's a button that says mute.
Actually,
Really handy.
I wouldn't put your mouth right on that just in case.
Yeah. Especially
Too late.
Dan's minute.
Too late.
By the
Two
way,
things
Ben,
in the
I do
chat.
wanna say that what I was whispering
Here-
sweet nothings into Dan's ear was that your vocabulary is superior to his, which is the problem he was having understanding. He was having a moment of
I'm
misunderstanding.
a camera guy, not a word guy.
Oh, it's breaking up for me.
2% left. We got to wrap it up, Mr. Caleb and
All right.
the boys.
Two.
Perfect time.
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Two
Love you
things in the
guys.
chat. There's. Are you leaving like right now?
Yep.
Okay.
No, go ahead. Do it.
2%. Go on.
Two things in the chat. Real quick, Benjamin, thank you for joining us. Have a good night. And 360 grad learned so much today. The world will never be the same to me. So that means a lot. We're gonna wrap up there. Almost out of battery life. Matt, awesome having you, man. Wish that could be every week.
Amazing.
Hope you have a wonderful rest of your guys' shoot down there or up there, I
Yep.
suppose. Appreciate it. Everyone in the chat, have a wonderful evening. Make sure you join us next week.
Yeah.
And that's all I got. Ben,
Love you guys.
Jem?
Ben, awesome. Ben, get some sleep. You're at like what? Almost 1 o'clock in the morning, right?
It's 1:01 a.m. where I am right now. Yeah.
Bam.
Guys, I
Top
will
of the
see you
morning
at
to
NAB 2020.
Okay, we're switching
better.
over.
Are you coming? Are
Here we
you
go.
coming? Are you seriously
I'll
coming?
be there.
Matt, are you
Ben,
coming
you're
too?
going to help me with the workshops.
Verbal contract.
Caleb, we're hanging.
Alrighty.
Bonus if I am. See you guys next week.
For
Love you
sure.
guys. Bye.
All right. Love you.